Hello friends, welcome back to your channel. This is your host Aniket Samant, and today we have Dr. Natasha with us as our guest. This is also a very special episode for us because this is our very first interview, and we are thankful to Dr. Natasha for taking time out and out of a busy schedule and talking to us. Today we'll be talking about creativity in modern world, but before we go there, let me quickly introduce Dr. Natasha. So Dr. Natasha is a renowned psychiatrist. She practices in Mumbai. She is an MD and DNB gold medalist. She is also a member of the prestigious Royal College of Psychiatry from United Kingdom. She has authored a lot of national as well as international papers with the focus on child psychology or child mental health. And she has also won a lot of national and international awards, including the prestigious Hong Fellowship and the World Psychiatrist Award in Berlin, right, for the young psychiatrists. So that's great. Wow, and really honored to have you on our show, Dr. Natasha. So how are you?
I'm fine, Aniket. Thank you so much for having me here. It's a real pleasure to get a chance to talk to you.
Thank you so much. So today we'll be talking about creativity in modern world. So when we just go into that topic, so creativity is pretty subjective, right? So what may be
Yeah.
creative for me may not be creative for you. Also, there are a lot of sort of stereotypes around creativity. So typically, when I think of creative people, what comes to our mind is musician, artists, or painters, of this sort of people. I mean, typically, creativity is much more broader than this. Even engineers, doctors, and other fields also are creative. No, but I think in the broad definition, this never strikes us. So, what are your primary thoughts on this, and how would you like to put creativity in your words? Like,
I think creativity is a very basic human trait. So
Mhm.
it ranges in a spectrum, like you said, from everyday creativity. For example, if there's a problem in your house and you find a creative solution for it, you find something different to hang up your clothes and when your hanger is not working. That's a
Mhm.
creative solution to an everyday problem. And
Mhm.
creativity is something we use every single day. But there are people who are on the other end of the spectrum. People for whom they can see associations, they can see patterns, they can imagine, generate ideas, which most people cannot. And these are the people that generally tend to use creativity as a part of their daily vocational practices or as part of their life. So, as a spectrum, we all have it, but definitely some have it more than the others.
Right, definitely. And like when we talk about this people, like creative people, do you think creative people are more like emotionally involved and more prone to situations like depression or something like that?
I think it's really again important to understand this entire concept wherein people it has been earlier believed that creativity by itself increases the risk of mental health problems.
Okay.
Now that has not held true in a lot of research work that has happened. What
Mm-hmm.
has been seen is people who generally use creativity as a vocation, like artists, tend
Mm-hmm.
to have a lot of emotional stress. For example, they have a lot of isolation. The way they think is different from others,
Mm-hmm.
and therefore they don't have early acceptance. Occupational stresses, for example, in countries like India, artists are not
Mm-hmm.
considered as respectable professions until they make it very big.
Yeah,
Financial concerns. All of this has its own stress on an individual.
right.
And also if you use your creative abilities to kind of be a professional, you sort of like put a part of your soul or your
Mhm.
identity into a
Right,
product,
right.
and you give it to the world for them to judge, and if judgment is not good or fair, it can definitely cause a lot of pain. So all of these also increase the risk of depression, anxiety, and mental health problems.
Right.
That said, there is some research, and I'll just add on here because this is
Mhm.
something that's important, that there is some scientific evidence that there is a risk of other mental health problems in people who are family members of people who are extremely creative. So there
Oh.
seems to be a slight linkage that exists.
Mhm.
Uh, Writers, as compared to other creative people, have been found to have a greater risk of mental health problems, but this is not very, very strong scientific data.
Okay, fine. But in your experience, doctor, when you see these people with different sort of mental illness, is it on a proportion basis? I don't know if it's right to put numbers to it, but from a proportion basis point of view, is it difficult for creative people to come out of this mental illnesses, come out of this situation, than compared to maybe people who are like other from other professions or vocations that they know?
I think a lot of people who are inherently creative are also people who are sensitive to the outside world. That is part of creativity, right? You have to be observant, you have to
Correct.
pick up nuances. Now, this very trait, when it comes to recovery from mental health, can also become it can be a facet, it can help you, but it can also become a hindrance. So it's really important that when we have individuals who are inherently strongly creative in nature, we kind of help them, uh, guide them how to use their creative potential to help their mental health. For example, the type of therapy that is done. Creative individuals may not do well with something called cognitive behavior therapy or rational emotive behavior therapy, but they may do well with psychodrama, with art-based therapies. So we have to also, as mental health professionals, be sensitive to the needs of the individual when we are talking about mental health recovery.
Right. Okay. And in today's world, when our topic is about creativity in modern world, in modern world, everything is about social media. Like everything is about likes and shares and comments, all those things. So there is this constant sense of validation that we seek from others, right? So when we talk about creativity in today's world, how important or how impactful is it to get the sort of art or whatever we are putting out in social media, to get that validated from others? And sometimes that it's things which may sound too trivial or may not be that much appealing, get actually the sort of what you can say likes or acceptance, and the other way around does not work. So what are your thoughts on this?
I think a lot of creative individuals, so there isn't scientific literature on this, but a lot of creative individuals do say that over time, exposure to social media has hurt their creativity.
Oh.
This can be because of a multiple reasons.
Mhm.
The first reason is because social media updates constantly and you have to keep posting on this. It doesn't give you time to introspect, to ideate, to allow ideas to incubate and become a wonderful product. You need to kind of put things out there before they kind of reach fruition.
Mhm.
The second problem with social media is it's based on likes, like you just mentioned, right? And I'm
Mhm.
sure somewhere at the end of this video, you may say, like my YouTube channel or
Yeah.
subscribe. So there is that kind of
Yeah.
content to it. But what happens in this whole thing is that social media allows you to put your content out there. People
Mhm.
like it, but you may not have a chance for constructive criticism, right?
Mhm.
So we have trolls who tend to be very negative on
Right.
social media, but there is really very little space for a discourse, for constructive criticism, for
Mhm.
mentorship, all of which are important in creative processes,
Correct.
right?
Correct.
And finally, generally, what happens with creativity, especially this is for young creative individuals,
Mhm.
normally creativity is kind of allowed to foster, flower in a small circles. For example, if you're an artist, by itself, you're good at painting, you go to a drawing class, small group, and
Mhm.
then you keep going on higher levels. So it
Right.
gives you time to emotionally mature. It gives you time to kind of compare and understand where you like, where you're contextually with the world. But
Mhm.
when it comes to social media, you can be compared to the world in an instant, which isn't really fair for a person,
Right.
right? So all of this can be very discouraging also for the individual. So
Right.
by itself, social media, although it appears helps maybe the marketability of creativity or creative
Mhm.
output, by
Mhm.
itself doesn't help the creative process.
Right. So it if I could put it in other word, like it's just a demand supply sort of circle, which is sort of not helpful for creativity process in general, right?
Yes, yes.
Uh, if we look at creativity, then what do you think? Like, are introverts more creative or are extroverts more creative? Like, is there any sort of science or research done on this topic?
Uh, that's very interesting as a question. Again,
Mhm.
I think the answer to this by science, you won't really get it, largely because, again, the definition of creativity is very different,
Mhm.
right? While people who are creative in, let us say, visual media, like artists in terms of painting, drawing, sketching, designing, they would tend to be more introverted in nature because there's a lot of inner world, inner thought exploration, while those who are creative more in, let us say, physical expression, like dance or drama, they are more likely to be in having greater extroversion as a trait. So
Right.
by itself, this isn't a definition. to be able to say which group has more or which group does not.
Right. But if you look at the process of creativity, some art, for example, if you take painting as a process, then it's pretty much freestyle. But then if you look at calligraphy, or maybe for that matter, even things which are used in corporate world like design thinking, which has a methodical approach for that creativity. So what are your thoughts on that? Like, is it sort of, when you have a methodical approach to creativity, is it in a way restrictive to creative expression, or uh, what do you think
I
on
think
this?
I think by itself, when we talk about creative output, there are two
Mhm.
parts of the process. The first part is what we call divergent thinking,
Mhm.
wherein a person thinks of an idea.
Mhm.
For example, if you take a fork, the fork can be used for multiple things. For
Mhm.
example, for eating, for combing your hair, for design patterns, for causing damage to someone, if you
Right.
kind of poke a fork into someone. So, fork, a simple instrument like that, can have so many uses,
Right.
right? That is what we mean by divergent thinking. But
Mhm.
this by itself doesn't give you an output.
Right.
If you have, for example, in terms of output, we need what we call convergent thinking. So one example is what we use in the medical fraternity, the stethoscope that you've seen
Right.
doctors use.
Mhm. Yeah.
There was a time where you couldn't hear the heart of a person without putting your ear to their chest,
Okay.
right? And
Mhm.
that was a time where all physicians were male. About how doctors had to kind of listen to their female patients. They couldn't do that because doctors were
Mhm.
males and they couldn't put their ears to the female colleague's chest,
Right.
right? So the person who kind of began the concept of a stethoscope just rolled a tube of paper and just kept the tube of paper on the female patient's heart area
Okay.
and put his ear to the other end.
Wow.
Now this is something we have done as children. We have
Right.
talked to each other as children, and nobody at that point of time thought
Correct.
about using it in medical care. So what I mean is, this is focused convergent thinking.
Right.
There are solutions that are there. So creativity by itself has both facets to it:
Right.
divergent and well as convergent thinking,
Correct.
right? So when you talked about slow methodical work, that is extremely important for convergent thinkers,
Right.
right?
Okay.
So by itself saying that that is bad for the creative process, I think is being a little too harsh on it.
Okay.
There
Right.
has to be a mix of both and space for divergent thinking, but the need to converge and have convergent thinking for an output.
Right. So just an extension to what you said. So does that mean the outliers are more of divergent thinkers?
Yes, generally they are. And effectively, if you look evolutionarily, they had to be. Every
Mm-hmm.
time man found a new plant, there
Mm-hmm.
had to be someone who was divergent to think that let
Think.
me try this, let me try to realize how to make cheese, for example, something we take for granted,
Right.
butter. You had to have someone who said, let me do something different with milk,
Correct. Right. That's
right?
true.
So that's a divergent thinker.
So then this takes us to another point. When then do you think creativity is something that is inborn or by birth, or then can it be practiced and we can improve on creativity?
Talent by itself is something that has definitely got a underlying innate ability,
Mhm.
right? So people have talents in different fields, whether it is music, speech, in reading, writing, word formation, visual, so on and so forth.
Mhm.
But by itself, that does not mean the person is creative,
Okay.
right? Talent by itself can be replicating something. So if you have Leonardo da Vinci's work, a very
Mhm.
talented artist may be able to replicate that perfectly. But
Mhm.
that doesn't mean the person is creative. Creativity requires a different level of thinking.
Right.
At the same time, no one who has succeeded in the creative field has done it without practice and effort and
Right.
determination. So
Correct.
just by thinking that talent is all that it takes, is it's never enough.
Right. So just taking a cue out of what you mentioned about Leonardo da Vinci. So I want to more talk about the perception of creativity rather than generation of creativity. Why does it happen? Like something resonates much more to a wider audience. For example, say Leonardo da Vinci painting, or say Beethoven's symphony music,
Hmm.
A.R. Rahman's music. So this is sort of things creative, this creative outputs have sort of universal appeal, whereas there are some creative things. For example, I don't know, some paintings, specific paintings, rap, etc., sort of music form, which have a very selected audience. So, is there any sort of science behind this, that why certain things are so universally appealing and while some are very confined to some set of audience?
So a lot of the types of things you mentioned that have more universal appeal have the ability to evoke emotions in almost all of us.
Mhm.
And certain specific types of creative pursuits can evoke them in a group of people.
Mhm.
By itself, that does not make a person more or less creative,
Mhm.
right? It is the ability to evoke an emotion that exists and that resonates amongst us. That
Okay.
is important.
So it's not about like mass appeal or class appeal that actually implies creativity. It's just about how you entice that maybe some part of the brain
Yes,
in a generic
yes.
way,
Yes,
right?
a lot of creative artists who tend to use more colors, those who tend to have themes that speak to others or
Mhm.
relate to common experiences, those
Mhm.
are the people who tend to, at least when I say become popular in terms
Mhm.
of mass media appeal, that's
Mhm.
what it happens. But the more specific you go, the more nuanced you are, the lesser the likelihood that you will appeal to the world in general. And that is true for almost any type of product.
Right, right. So it just that. So do you think that if the creative process is involved more so that I can connect with the audience, or it's kept more generic, then it will have a wider appeal?
Generally, that is the case. So whenever I see patients who have come from the creative field, they
Mm-hmm.
know, it's like saying Bollywood masala formula,
Yeah,
right?
right,
Film formula. They know that if they have to make money, they have to do these things, and that
right.
will give them money. So if
Correct.
they have to generate bread and butter, they are aware of what the requirements for that are. But
Mm-hmm.
if they want to give voice to their creative identity, that may be similar or may be different to what the standard popularity formulas are.
Right. Okay. And then this takes us to the definition, like how restrictive can creativity be, or in broader sense, if I can say that using creativity many times we tend to polarize views of people, right? Or that may have an altogether different impact on society. So, what are your thoughts about creativity being used in that way? Typically, you use like cartoonists or sort of people are use creativity as a form to influence people and try to polarize their views. So, what are your thoughts on this?
I think creativity is one of the oldest human ability sets. If you look back, there are cave paintings that are more than,
Yeah,
7,000, 8,000 years old, and they have a meaning. They have power. If you look at a cave painting 7,000 years of old, it will still create an emotion in you or
right,
me. That's the voice of creativity that exists. That's the ability, and it's the Spider-Man dialogue of with great power
well
comes great
done.
responsibility,
Right,
right? How you use that power is again
right.
individual. So I just want to add that creative individuals are people. They're people
Mhm,
like you and me.
mhm.
Some can be broad-minded, some cannot. Some can think about the world in general, some can be very selfish, some can be narcissistic, some can be kind. We are all different people. So it isn't that there is a specific stereotype for an artist. I think we should go away from that and acknowledge that they exist as people as well.
Right. Now, when you mentioned about narcissist people, or there are a lot of myths around creativity. For example, I've heard a lot of articles wherein people talk about people doing substance abuse or sort of doing drugs, they get better ideas, or like you said, narcissist people are more creative. So, is there any scientific basis to this sort of statements made, or these are just sort of creativity myths?
I think more or less from what scientific evidence has shown,
Mhm.
by itself, use of a lot of drugs, a lot of psychoactive drugs, especially on a regular basis, has been found to be damaging to creativity.
Okay.
Occasional use may help what we call divergent thinking,
Mhm.
right? So, for example, a lot of creative artists think that the use of psychedelic substances like LSD, MDMA, or use of cannabis can help them think better, which is true. It does help divergent thinking, but it's going to be of no, it will in fact damage convergence thinking. So you may have a lot of ideas. If you cannot put them into fruition and into a end stage, those ideas mean nothing. Right? So that's where it is. But that entire theme, that entire concept, which we've seen in films, which is heavily stereotyped and propagated, has continued over time. Right? We also talked a little bit about anxiety, depression in people who are creative. Some drugs, some substances, alcohol can help alleviate symptoms to a small extent. Right? So they alleviate some symptoms. So sometimes people use it in terms of what we call self-medication. Not good medication, obviously, because it can cause its own problems, but they sometimes use it to help some symptoms. But generally, substance use and creativity does not have a happy ending.
Okay, fine. So when we see in movies, for example, Sherlock Holmes putting a nicotine patch to things, so that's more of just cinematic representation rather than actual benefit towards creativity.
More likely he has nicotine withdrawal and he's using the patch to combat withdrawal rather than help it in an aid. Right? I think again this entire theme of, for example, mental illness and creativity is again a very strong myth, and we talked about it in the beginning. But we have to remember, for every Virginia Plath, or let's say Fyodor Dostoevsky, there has been Shakespeare. So person with and without mental. For every Beethoven, there has been a Bach. So, there has always been that kind of balance that exists. So this troubled artist stereotype has, I think, damaged artists much more than helped them.
Right. So when we talk about this high due to drugs and does that help into creativity, the other way maybe people can achieve that high or maybe that state is maybe through spirituality. So spirituality also gives you a certain sense of calmness and maybe ability to concentrate and focus. So is it a thing that spiritual people can be more creative or something on those lines? Like, is it possible?
I think that again, these are two. So again, creativity, very difficult to define. Spirituality, even more difficult to define. Right. So, but at the end of the day, I think we're kind of differentiating between spirituality and religiosity. I'm going to talk in terms of mental health. As a mental health professional, I'm sure there are people from the social sciences who might think of this differently. But so spirituality and religiosity are two different things. And spirituality involves a lot of personal relationship with a higher power, or a belief in a grander scheme of things. And that again requires a lot of introspective, imaginative thinking. Right? And I think that is important in the scheme of things. That therein, that's where creativity and spirituality have an overlap by itself. Right? Can creative individuals use spirituality? Some do, some don't. That is again a very personal experience and a very personal choice. One thing that remains, that for a creative individual, actually what gives them a high or a kick is actually the completion of a creative visual ideal that they've had. So when they have something in their head that they want to bring out, whether it's a sculpture, it's a painting, whether it's a beautiful work of written work, when that comes to fruition, that's actually the best feeling they have. And I think almost all artists will tell you. So if they kind of don't lose sight of the goal, they will have that wonderful experience sooner rather than later.
Correct. And you have written so many articles on child psychology. I just wanted to understand whether from children point of view, how does creativity or rather promoting creativity in children works? Are there any sort of early signs to identify inclination of a child in a specific sector or maybe his interest area? So can we sort of and then promote it?
Of course. So I think the good part is that today's world has begun recognizing the importance of creativity compared to the previous. I mean, maybe at least when I grew up, there was very more marks focused. There was no concept of drawing class, dancing class. That was a different time for possibly the middle class of India. Now things have opened up, but we cannot make creativity a competition. Right? A child might have ability and talent in one area, might have interest in another. So again, you
Correct.
could be a fantastic, you could be very good at playing music, but you're actually interested in writing.
Right.
I think that is also important to remember as a dichotomy. You don't push your child in because, musician banega, ye hoga, and push your plans onto the child.
Right.
Let them do what they love and don't take away their childhood from them just because they show ability in one area.
Right.
A lot of creative individuals are happy leaving their creative talents as hobbies.
Right.
I have people who are unbelievably fantastic at sketching. I have a patient who was fantastic at it, but she's like, I'm never going to make this my primary vocation because this is mine. This is for me. This is personal.
Right.
I don't want to put
Right.
it out there. So it doesn't mean because you're creative you have to make it a profession and occupation.
So with all these reality shows and where like we put children like from right from the age of 3 or 4 years into such stressful situation, so does it in any way sort of and they are very confident, some of them are very confident to face such a big audience at this stage, so that's really commendable, but in most cases does that in a way those that rejection at that level in front of such a big audience, maybe a global audience, is actually what you can say impacting in a negative way to their mental health in the long run?
I think more than rejection is the commodification of certain ideals at that age.
Mhm.
Right? Most of these shows, a lot of them are pageants or
Mhm.
based on certain vocal abilities or physical abilities. And it is making the child very one dimensional in nature,
Right.
right? Of course, for a lot of sports person who function at the highest level, their everyone's stories are filled with parents who have been very dedicated, possibly pushy, coaches that
Mhm.
have been very focused, hyper focused on their performance. Um, and yes, I agree that that is important if when you're talking about the highest levels.
Mhm.
But commodification or objectification of one facet of the child is never good for their mental health, because if at all they lose it
Mhm.
in the future or they want to forge an identity different from it, they have no backup,
Right.
right? And I think that's important.
And like you rightly put there, like it's like robbing their childhood. Like when I see most of them, they talk so mature. I mean, you want them to talk about certain things at their age, and if the sort of what you can say representation that they do at that level, it does not suit their age. Sometimes uh, that's pretty odd. I mean, I don't know. At least for me
Yeah,
to see that.
it is. And I think the problem is they children talking like adults, and we kind of identify it and say, oh, that means they're so smart and they're
Mhm.
so well put together. But children need to be with other children to learn a lot of things. You learn teamwork when you're with your peers. You learn
Right.
how to compromise, adjust. Batting कौन करेगा नहीं करेगा is वो सब करना पड़ता है ना. You have to learn to
Right.
bargain. You have to learn
Right.
friendship. So if a child behaves like an adult, he or she is not going to be able to connect with other children, and
Mhm.
therefore key social skills that are actually important in adult life, they don't get a chance to learn,
Right.
and then it's a problem.
Correct. And do you think that having creativity or some sort of hobby in this stressful world may actually result into a sort of happier life? Like there is always like many motivational speakers or sort of thinkers always think that you should pursue at least a certain hobby apart from your regular work. So does that actually help in any way from a?
I think hobbies have been very important ways in which people have been able to express themselves,
Mhm.
expand their minds, get their me time, be more at peace. And
Mhm.
this was the thing that we as humans did for centuries together.
Mhm.
But in the recent few years, time for hobbies has come down quite a lot, right?
Right.
The negative fallout of that is yet to be seen on the population in general, but on an individual basis, it makes a difference. People
Okay.
who pursue hobbies are generally more calm,
Mhm.
generally more satisfied. Happiness and satisfied again are two very different
Right.
terms. So I
Yeah.
would say more satisfied than use the word happy.
Right. And this satisfaction, as you rightly mentioned, like it's a state of mind, right? So I may be happy by just having a normal car, but some people are not happy even after achieving so much. So it's just a
Yeah.
state of mind, and I think that is very bad, right? And from a mental health point of view, if you're constantly sort of pushing yourself in a way, pushing yourself is good, but I think I'm just talking this more of a comparing yourself always with others and that sort of thing.
Yes. I think for a lot of people, when they push themselves excessively, when they are super ambitious, it is more because of their own insecurities where they have to prove to themselves or to the
Mhm.
world for external validation.
Mhm.
It isn't wrong to be ambitious. But when it comes at the cost of your peace of mind, your quality of life, your social relationships, impacts the people you care about, that's when it's a problem, right?
Correct.
I think recall the people who are successful and happy have their priority lists very clear,
Mhm.
right? So when they need to focus on, let us say, family, when they need to focus on themselves, health, career, there is very little ambiguity.
Right. Correct. So, do you think our education system somehow, somewhere kills creativity?
Uh, Education systems, I think there are a lot of boards in India right now.
Mhm.
Some of the boards are more pro individuals who have some creative talent. Some of the boards aren't.
Mhm.
I think more than just, I think what has happened has been the focus on marks.
Mhm.
Um, there was a time where 60% was all right.
Right.
Now it's as bad as failing. And it's terribly sad, right? Children have absolutely no time. I think this is a joke that, we are doctors, my husband and me, but his
Mhm.
nephew who's in class 10, I thought was more busy and had less time than we did,
Okay.
right? And we ऐसा कि उसे मिलने के लिए appointment लेना पड़ता है because he literally has no time, and that has been his life the last 2 years, and that's terribly unfair to a growing mind.
Right. That's true. Then, if we talk about creativity, then there are these two sort of things which we keep on listening, at least in the corporate word, about your emotional quotient and your intellectual quotient, right? So, what do you think? Like, are people with a higher EQ more creative, or have, or rather, showcase more qualities of being creative than the IQ people, or the other way around? Like, what is the science behind this?
Scientifically, neither have had the strongest correlation with creativity.
Mhm.
Of course, it is extremely unlikely to have a highly creative individual or creative genius if they have a low IQ,
Mhm.
IQ on the lower range. Let me put it this way,
Mhm.
right? Uh, EQ is very important in the way you express yourself. So EQ might come into play when it comes to creative processes in writing work, in poetic work, work that has got a lot of emotional expression and emotional resonance associated with it.
Mhm.
But if you take the whole box of creativity, it doesn't really work with that.
Right. If you look at it in recent time, and when we are talking about creativity in modern times, we have artificial intelligence, machine learning, and sort of different algorithms that are running in background. So when you see when the music was created, typically using your musical instruments, now it is digitally synthesized music. Auto tunes are being used. For example, the handcrafted arts, like for example calligraphy, which used to be using only pen and your hand, now there are sort of machines that can replicate that. So do you think in today's world we have made it sort of extremely competitive for the expression of an individual when it comes to what you can say lack of influence of technology, or sort of that independent expression is always competing with computers and AI and all those other words. So what are your thoughts on that?
I think AI is a fantastic tool.
Mhm.
So far, we are not yet in the matrix world where AI seems to have its own identity or the ability to generate new ideas. I think that is something that our brain has been able to do, and we maintain the brain is one of the best machines. What it does is it kind of maybe takes away the opportunity for you to use those skills effectively. If you have a person who is in, and I say that in terms of maybe uh, a more of an occupational vocational aspect, right? If you have a weaver who's kind of trying to weave a sari versus a loom machine or an automated loom machine that does the same, automatically there is no competition in terms of output, the number of saris that can be produced, right?
Right.
And that is where the competition and the market dynamics start playing, right? Does it change an individual's ability? No. Will that individual's ability to kind of use that skill in the larger market be affected? Yes. So depends on what you're really trying to grade here in the answer.
Right. And so from your experience point of view, can you cite any specific examples wherein by using certain sort of methodologies or sort of helps that a creativity process or the creative aspect in an individual can be enhanced or has helped maybe in some cases?
In what you mean in terms of using technology?
Yeah, both. I mean, technology as well as some sort of say mental health sessions. That there are things like hypnosis and other things that are being used by psychologists and also some sort of people into the medical science. That so does that in a way help or boost the process of creativity?
I think a lot of mental health processes kind of help a person deal with past traumas, their issues with self-esteem, their own inhibitions, so to speak. That kind of opens the lid and allows them creative expression. We are also beginning to using technology for this. For example, virtual reality has also been used to allow people to kind of create their art through virtual reality softwares before kind of putting it into maybe the physical form. So it kind of gives them the chance to play around, ideate without having to spend, let us say, 6 months and getting an output and then wanting to ideate again.
Right.
So it really depends on how the individual chooses to use technology. Technology remains a tool, and a tool is something you and I use. How we use it is at our discretion.
Right. And like you rightly mentioned about virtual reality, that has helped doctors in immense way now in order to treat different sort of diseases. So it's, yeah, as you rightly mentioned, it's how you use the technology, and definitely technology is evolving, and definitely if you can put it to right use, then it will definitely help. So we are at the end of our discussion. Do you have any last thoughts on creativity, or you want to end this sort of interview there by giving any of your thoughts or advice or to our audience?
I think just one thing I'd like to say. All of us are creative. Just because you cannot create a wonderful work of art does not mean you are not. Creativity, like we talked right at the beginning, has got so many small domains to it. Encouraging it will help our personal lives. Encouraging it will help our imagination. Encouraging it will help us feel more rounded as individuals.
Right.
So personal creativity is as important as more public creativity, and let's value that as well.
Right. Well, on that note, thank you so much, Dr. Natasha, for taking out time out of your busy schedule and joining us on this interview. It was really a pleasure to have you on our show, and hopefully you have enjoyed the time as well.
Yes, I really loved having a chat with you.
Thank you.
Thank you for making me the first guest.
Yeah. So that will be always special. You will be our first guest.
Yes, I will go down in history.
Yeah, hopefully.
Your channel.
Okay.
Thank you.
So thank you so much.